recording. For everyone joining us right now, I'm Aaron from Teachable. Hello, hello. We're going to be starting with the workshop with David Young that I'm excited to hear because I want to know how to start a profitable drone business from scratch in just a few moments. Let us know where you're joining from and really let us know what takeaways you want to have. There's time for Q&A at the end. This is an interactive experience. I'm going to be grabbing questions out of the chat and taking them to David if anything comes up throughout. But feel free to use this chat as a place to put questions, as a place to put takeaways you hope David covers. And just general questions. You have David with you today. We're going to be here till about 3 p.m. EST. And we're going to be kicking off in about 2 minutes. I see some folks joining already. I see Long Beach, California, Des Moines, Iowa. Hey, Steve from North Carolina. We got Jen from Oregon. Where else we got? Hey, we got a Howdy from Colorado. Hello, hello. And like
I'm
I said,
in Florida. I'm right between Tampa and Orlando, so it's still pretty hot here, unfortunately.
Nice. We got the gloom and doom of fall in Brooklyn, so it's really starting here. We're going to do one bit of technical housekeeping, folks, before we kick this off. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure for anybody who's joining, let me share my screen. Just make sure, 1 second here. I'm just going to share my screen for a second. So for whoever's joining us today, the one thing to note is if you are seeing a fuzzy video, if you're seeing any low quality, feel free to click the settings portion and bump that up to 720. That's what I would recommend. Mine's set to audio, but 720 is going to get you the best resolution, especially because David's going to be using the whiteboard a bit. You're going to want to have the best resolution possible. Let me stop sharing my screen, and we're going to kick this off in about 30 seconds. Let me move this over. Great, great, great. We see folks joining. I see a New York City in the chat. All right, for everyone who's joining today, we have David Young. For those who are joining now, for those who join later, there's going to be a replay available. So even if you join late, I'll put this in the chat. Don't worry, you can catch this replay after. How this is going to work is David's going to take over in a minute. He's going to, introduce himself for those who might be new to David's class and David's, expertise on drones today. And he's going to run through about 30 to 45 minutes worth of his workshop and just walk through this piece. At the end, we're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A. But if you put in questions earlier, there's no problem with that. So without further ado, David, we're really glad to have you, and take it away.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. Well, for those of you watching, like Aaron said, I'm David Young. I'm been a Teachable user for like 4 years or so, which is pretty long, I think, in the online course world, but really enjoy Teachable. First off, just want to apologize. My voice, I got a cold like 2 days ago, so it's a horrible time to lose my voice. So if I kind of got the Darth Vader sound going on, that's why. So apologize in advance. I'll try to talk loud for you guys. I am the founder of a company called Drone Launch Academy. I'm just going to give you like a real quick kind of my story background, if you will. I got some pictures together for you. I usually tell this story just talking, but I found some pictures from the times that these things happen. So I figured I'd just share them with you. That way you can just feel like you're there. So I'm gonna share my screen with you real quick, and then we're gonna go back to looking at me in the whiteboard here. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, but this is me. I used to have long, cool, like emo hair, but now it's nice and short, unfortunately. But I always wanted to be a commercial pilot. So when I was a little kid, I thought I wanted to be in the Air Force. And then I went to some boot camp training. Everybody yelled at me, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. So I think maybe I'm gonna switch and I'm gonna be a commercial pilot. So I wanted to do that through high school. I applied for some flight schools. I got into the 2 flight schools that I wanted to. Florida Institute of Technology, they're like a big engineering school. They gave me like a pretty decent scholarship. So I went there. That's this year. I think this was like 2007 or so. And that's me on my first solo flight, flying that like old 1975 airplane. And that's me with the cool glasses and hair on the right, acting like I was having a good time. However, on the inside, I was terrified. And I was like, you know what? You're up in this little tiny box, really high in the air. These planes sometimes break. I was just very paranoid all the time that I was going to crash and die. So, I was like, you know what? Let's switch it up again. I'm going to go to Florida State and study business. I didn't know what that was. So I did accounting at Florida State. I switched it up. And let me see if I can get to the next slide here. There we go. And I went to Florida State, did accounting, and then at the end of college, got recruited to work for the FBI for a while. So these are some shots of that. So top left, I started off doing some budget stuff, crunching numbers, spreadsheets, got my CPA license. So that was me with my kind of group there that I was a part of. And then I did that for a few years, and I switched over and became a forensic accountant for a while. So I put the nice big red arrows there so you can pick me out. So I went to, the FBI Academy, learned how to be a forensic accountant, worked on some cool cases doing stuff. But while I was here at the FBI, somebody on my team that I was with, I was doing white collar crime investigations, was a former Army special operations guy. And he's like, hey, he was talking about drones one day. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, it's crazy. You have to actually be a full on pilot to fly drones for money. This was like 2015, right? And I was like, I got my pilot's license because at Florida Institute of Technology, I went and finished and I got my pilot's license, but then I moved on. So I thought, well, I got my pilot's license. Let me look into this. So I started looking. That's when I started getting into drones then. I was like, wait, you can stay on the ground, but also fly the drone in the air and see the same thing as an airplane, but I'm not going to die from crashing a plane. So I was like, this sounds great. So I got into drones and started looking into it more. And at the time, it's changed since then, but at the time you had to have a pilot's license, which seems like way overkill. And it kind of was. But that's kind of what initially got me looking at it. Well, fast forward a little later, I went to some drone conferences and I met these two guys. So dude on the left is Andrew Zamiti. He's a lawyer. He kind of looks like a lawyer, if we're going to be honest. The guy on the right is Colonel Donald Birchoff. He's a former Air Force colonel. He used to be in charge of all weather programs at the Air Force. He was in charge of literally all weather. I met these guys at a drone conference, a real small one that I went to when I lived in DC. And I was like, and the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, they're the folks in the US who are in charge of all the airspace and making all the rules around aviation. They had just announced that they were going to change it and they're not going to require you to have a pilot's license anymore to fly a drone for money or for business. They made their own test. So it's like a 60-question test that you have to take and pass. And I thought, you know what? This will be a really good thing to help people with because people are going to need to take this test and pass. So I met these two fine gentlemen and asked them if they would partner with me in putting a course together. I actually went back and got my FAA instructor license so I could teach people how to pass knowledge exams. And I worked with them for several months. I developed all the content and material and started what is now Drone Launch Academy. So that was in early 2016. I was still working at the FBI at this point, but I launched that in 2016. We grow it. About 2 years later, I quit my FBI job because Drone Launch Academy is doing very well. We're helping a lot of students. And so now fast forward 2 years even after that, and here we are today, right? So this is me with a couple people from my team in our offices here. We're in a big co-working space, so we don't have a giant high rise for just us, but a few people from our team. We have about 7 or so people. They're all remote, but we had a little get together here, and we've actually grown. We've had over 18,000 students go through a Drone Launch Academy course. So that is the prep course I told you about. We later added some extra courses. So courses on aerial photography, aerial cinematography, so like getting cool video with drone, how to edit, roof inspections, and some others. So we expanded into kind of what to do with your drone after you get that license. And so we've had 18,000 students. So it's been a lot of fun, and we have learned a ton of stuff about drones. Let me stop sharing my screen, get back here. Learned so much about drones, what people's problems were, what was helping people succeed, what people were struggling with, right? So I'm going to dive a little bit more later into some of those struggles and what we found. But before I get too much farther, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the drone industry now and some cool numbers and projections and figures. Because you might not be as familiar with drones. You might know drones as like, oh, those are cool toys, but you might not know anything beyond that. So I just want to kind of paint a picture for you so you can understand the opportunity that is there with drones. I know about this opportunity on like more of a experiential level. Like I get to talk to people all the time and I have a podcast and all that, right? But you may have never listened to our podcast. You may have never looked into drones much. So real quick, we're going to dive into to that in a second. But as Aaron talked about, let me just give a quick recap on kind of the order I'm going to go in so you know what to expect, right? So first I'm going to talk about the drone industry, some cool numbers, some cool figures. Then I'm going to go through some case studies of people who are actually making money with a drone, right? What do they do? How do they do it? I'm also going to share with you kind of the key industries that are best. for drone use. So which industries drones can help. And if you're just starting a drone business, which ones are the best to look at? And then I'm going to talk about kind of the 3 secrets, right? So I talk these 3 secrets. Basically, they're just common threads that I've found from interviewing a ton of successful drone businesses. I found some things that they do well that the people who aren't successful, that they're not paying attention to. So I'm going to share those with you so you can kind of know that and know how to fix that if that's something you're interested in. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the framework. So we've developed a framework, again, by analyzing all these different successful drone companies on how to go from zero to what we like to say, at least $1,000 a month with your drone. The people who have done that, what have they done and how have they done it? So we're going to walk through kind of a step-by-step framework. At the end, I'm going to show you that and how those 3 secrets fit in. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Let's talk about why drones, right? Why should you care about drones? Why is there an opportunity here? Well, drones haven't really become super popular from a business standpoint up until about 5 years ago, and even from a recreational standpoint. If you think about drones 10 years ago, really the only people using drones were the military and maybe some people who were custom building drones, right? It wasn't like really mainstream. Well, around 2015, which is around the time I got into drones, maybe a little before that, the company DJI, you may be familiar with them. It's like the Mavic Pro or the Mavic Air or the Phantom drones. If you've ever messed with drones, you might have heard of those. They started making drones that were much more affordable and much easier to fly, right? They started integrating GPS with the drones. They made them very stable, almost impossible to crash, right? They put sensors in them so you couldn't hit stuff, a lot of really cool stuff. So they started making drones a lot more accessible. So drones started to get a lot more popular. Also, the US kind of changed the regulations on allowing more people to become commercial drone operators. So it started to progress and get more and more involved. And as drones became more accessible, people kept finding new uses for drones and new industries that drones could help and new ways to utilize drones for business purposes. So I found a really good little excerpt from a businessinsider.com article that I just want to read to you real quick that I thought summed it up very well. So it says, unimaginable uses of drones are coming to life every single day, and their evolution is only going to surge with time. Business tech buffs globally are trying to get a slice of this rapidly growing trends pie. The drone service market size is expected to grow from 4.4 billion in 2018 to 63.6 billion by 2025. I'm just going to put that here so you have it. So they're saying 4.4 billion in 2018, right? To what was it, 63.6 billion in 2025? And we're like here, 2020. So still, right, on the early stages of that. And that's like a 14 plus X growth over that time period, right? So that's a lot of growth. It says, for a budding entrepreneur, owning a drone in this day and age is a latent business opportunity just waiting to be explored and exploited. For opportunistic business people, drones have multiple uses and can be explored and utilized in a variety of ways. So it's just one reason to be excited for drones. People are finding new uses for them all the time. They're getting more and more adopted. And I think right now is a really good time to get interested in it, to start looking into it, start thinking about it. Again, we have a podcast that I'll tell you a little bit more about later, but all we do are interview successful drone business owners and what they do, how they got started. And I'm always blown away about how people get into this and the cool things they find to do with their drones and how they make money with it. So now that we got that, let's talk about some typical industries that drones help with. You might think, okay, drones are cool, but what do drones actually help with, right? So there's a number of different industries. Some right now are more popular than others, mostly because of the regulation around drones, right? So agriculture is a big one. So precision agriculture, drones can fly over a whole crop of, a whole field of crops and can create like a map and show you different elevation changes, can show you how green certain things are. So precision agriculture companies know exactly where to apply certain chemicals to certain plants. So there's that, right? Construction, a lot of construction companies are adopting drones more and more because it helps. They can get really, really quick site assessments. They can get measurements. They get progress reports. There's actually a lot of uses in construction. They use them for marketing, for like stakeholder updates, right? Like if you're the one financing this humongous building being built, you want to see updates, right? And drones are a really great way to go snap some photos from the air to see how that project is doing, in addition to doing things like helping with surveys and tracking equipment and all that stuff. So there's construction. Mining is another one. I wouldn't have thought about this when I first started, but drones can actually go and they can create 3D models of an area. So they take tons and tons of pictures, and then the software puts all those pictures together to create a 3D model. And what mining companies do is they look at like stockpiles or the different mines they're digging out, and they can take a 3D model of it one day, and then they can come back a week later and do another 3D model, and they can see how that chain has changed over time. So they had a big stockpile of some material and they're using it up. They can take the difference to say, oh, here's exactly how much material we utilized, and they can make sure that everything is in check with all their numbers. Another big one, and you might have heard of this one and know about this, is real estate, right? Real estate, more and more people are using drones for real estate. And this is actually where we see a lot of people get in right at the beginning. I'll talk about this more in a minute. But real estate is really good for drone use because you can incorporate drones to capture large plots of land, or if you have a big house, it can get some really unique perspectives that maybe weren't captured before just from on the ground photography or things like that. So drones are getting really popular in real estate for marketing purposes. Then in media and advertising, right, in commercials, you'll see drone shots. But even for small businesses, right, they want, hey, can you come feature or do a little commercial about what we're doing? So typically that's combined with like ground cameras and drone cameras, but that it's utilizing a whole or opening up a whole new thing that you can do for media. And then there's TV and film, right? If you're filming for movies, a lot of people do that. And then law enforcement's using drones for search and rescue, right? You can have infrared drones to help find people. Firefighters using infrared drones, they can put them up and they can find the hot spots of the fire, so they know where to aim the hoses. So there's some really cool stuff there. But I like the search and rescue stuff a lot. I've heard some really cool stories from first responders where, there was a kayaker in this really ice cold river and he went missing, and they lost him, and it was pitch black. And they had all the firefighters out there and different first responders looking for him. He said, we popped the drone up, and within 15 seconds, we saw his, with the thermal camera, we saw him, off to the side there on the side of the woods, and I could fly the drone over, and the drone has lights that are flashing. He's like, and I could guide the search team right down to where he was, and we saved him. And it was like super fast. He's like, otherwise we would have been hunting in the dark all night to try to find this person. So there's really, really, really interesting things that you can do with drones, and you can help a whole wide range of industries. Now, things right now that drones can't do, but that should be coming soon, the rules say right now you can't fly beyond line of sight. So all these people talking about drone deliveries and, Amazon's going to be delivering a package to my door and this and that. Technically right now, that's still not fully legal, right? So they're getting some special permissions to do test sites and things like that. But that's coming, but it's not here yet. So that's another reason why it's good to get in now, because you're kind of into the industry before all the other opportunities break open when things like that become available, right? So you don't want to be just getting into it at that point, or else you're kind of almost too late. Let's see. So let's talk about what are the best industries, in my opinion, that I see people start off with drones, right? So typically it is, and by the way, Aaron, you can feel free to stop me if people are putting in any questions or anything.
You're perfect. I'm learning a ton, taking notes. Right
Okay,
now, I think
right.
Everyone's just listening diligently.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure, because normally I can see a chat, but I can't see anything, so I don't want to bear
No
forward.
worries. If anything, and folks, this is a good time to repeat. As you have questions, if David's going too fast, you want him to go back to anything, please put him in the chat, and we'll try to grab him during these breakpoints. But David, please continue.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to. We got a lot to get through, so I'm trying to go fast. And there's the replay too, so if you're like, I want to hear that again, hit it. So what I typically see people get into, and it's funny, I did this podcast. I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's called Drone to 1K, and we have guests on. I go out and I find people who are making at least $1,000 a month with their drone. So you don't have to be wildly successful, because I wanted people who were doing it on the side, like let's say they have a full-time job and they're just doing this on the side. It's like some extra income, all the way up to people who are making like, multiple six figures with their drone. I wanted like a full spectrum. So, I interview these people, and I literally just like pick their brains for an hour or 30 minutes and like, how did you get started? What were your challenges? How did you go out and find clients? Right. So I just did this over and over and over again. And it's funny. It's almost like the same exact stories kept emerging where, oh, I did this first, and then I did this, and then I did this. And then like all these successful people were doing the same things. And so I thought, well, shoot, there's some common patterns here. So using that info, here's what I'm telling you for the industries. A lot of people get started in real estate. Now, some people have some gripes with real estate saying, oh, there's just, real estate agents are cheap and they don't want to pay for quality and this and that, right? I mean, there's a ton of real estate agents. There's a ton of real estate being sold. So of course you're going to get some people who they just want to go to a house and then take some pictures with their iPhone and throw that on Zillow and call it a day, right? That's probably not your customer. But most of these people have found, through networking and other outreach strategies, they link up with some real estate agents that really kind of care about their marketing, and they'll do drone photos for them. A lot of times they'll do real estate walkthrough videos, which are very popular. So you're using the drone to kind of go around the outside of the house and feature the land, and anything else that's really interesting about the house. Maybe they have a pool, but then you're also going on the inside and kind of walking through with a video so that a potential home buyer has a really good feel for what the home is like inside and out, right? So a lot of them start there. And many times they'll offer, to kind of sweeten the deal, they'll use their drone, but they'll also offer like, hey, I can, I've learned about photography now, I can take some pictures of the inside as well. So a lot of them will offer a full package deal, or some of them will just focus on one aspect. We have one person who was on our podcast. He's got a 6-figure business and he only does video. He only does real estate video walkthrough tours. So he's got one price for if you want the drone and the inside. And then he's got one price if you just want the inside. If it's like a really small house or if it's in like a crappy area, he can just do the inside. He doesn't use drone for those. But he says for a lot of his projects, if not most, he's using the drone too to kind of put the video together. And he makes well into 6 figures just doing videos in the middle of Kentucky, So he's just been able to get really good at developing relationships and building that client base to where he's got a very healthy business, okay? So another one is that's good for newbies is construction, doing those construction site monitoring projects that I discussed. That would be really, that's really popular one for newbies. And a lot of them do kind of some advertising, corporate video, promo video type stuff for people. And, in our experience, because I have a drone company too that I've set up almost to like test out different methods, but it's a company that exists and it makes money. It's not my main focus, but I use it to kind of test things out that we're learning about on the podcast. But for that, we've gotten leads for, making a promo video for some doctor who wanted to convince people from his home country to come over and be doctors and get rich and stuff. He's like, I want you to get a drone video of my house and my pool and my cars, I was like, all right. He's like, I'll pay $500. And it would just be like one little drone video. Like, cool. A lot of stuff around inspections. So one guy said, hey, this was a job we got. Hey, I'm having an argument with the county. I want you to come fly over this easement behind my house and document the condition so I can use that in our next meeting to show them what they're saying is not true. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, okay? And let me bust a common myth that you might be thinking or a lot of people believe. A lot of people believe that you got to buy a really expensive drone or you have to have this high-end gear to be successful or to have a drone business, right? And that's simply not true, right? The people who I know have the most expensive drones do not have the most successful businesses. Right now the drones have gotten really good. It's almost like a cell phone, where it's like it continually gets better and cheaper all the time. So now there's a drone called the Mavic Mini. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of it, but it'll shoot higher than 1080p video. It shoots really high resolution photos. I think it's 2.7K video, right? It does like really good. And it's a little drone. I think they're like $399 or something from DJI. And this is like, and it's tiny, but it takes this great video. And before the drones were a lot bigger that could do that. So you have that all the way up to some of the more kind of what you call prosumer drones, which are like $1,600, which is the Mavic 2 Pro, which those are great. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to. A lot of people think they got to jump all the way up there and start there. That is not the case, right?
David, to interrupt, with that, one of the questions someone asked in the chat was about the Mavic 2 and, do you consider that a good drone? Would you share a bit about, beyond the drone itself, the Mavic Mini, can you talk a bit about maybe what gear you have on top, like any pieces that you would call essential for someone in the early phase of starting a drone business, or is it just the drone itself? Or like just, we're getting some questions around, what other elements do you need? What gear do you need with that?
Yeah, so for the drone, for many of the jobs that I'm talking about now, that Mavic Mini would do the job, right? The people that I know that are delivering video files to their clients, whenever they export them, they're exporting them in 1080p, right? So even if they have this drone that shoots in crazy 4K and all this epic stuff, right? By the time they export it and deliver it to their client, they're giving it to them in a 1080 resolution, which the Mavic Mini will shoot twice that, right? So obviously those nicer drones, the quality gets better and they can fly farther and things like that. But it's not like you have to have that starting out. Now, certainly if you've got the budget and you want to just spring for a $1,600 drone, by all means, go for it. It's a fantastic drone. But I just don't want that to be a hindrance for people thinking, oh, I've got to invest like all this crazy, crazy money to get a drone, to get anybody, right? And honestly, even the cameras on your cell phones have gotten so good now. And that guy I mentioned, who's got a 6-figure video real estate business, he says sometimes he's like, if I'm outside, I don't feel like getting my gear out and the conditions are good. He's like, I'll just take my cell phone and I'll just like do this for some like outside shots with the video. And he puts it in his stuff, and it's
Love
hard
it.
to tell the difference, to be honest. It's hard to tell it. So anyway, so I would say it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing construction progress updating stuff and you're just taking aerial photos and some aerial video, then yes, all you would need is that drone, and you'd probably need some type of software to edit. But Adobe Lightroom is a really popular one for photography, and that's like $9 a month, I think. Or if you want to if you want to do video editing, there's actually a free video editing software called DaVinci Resolve that a lot of people love and say it's really good. Or you can get, if you have Final Cut Pro, that's one. I mean, iMovie comes free on Mac computers. So there's a lot of options out there. But if you're doing some of this stuff, you would need a way to either kind of edit some of those photos and videos. So I would say that may be some extra stuff. But the drone comes with a controller. You plug it into your phone. So there's not much extra you need as far as the drone goes, right? And the app to fly the drone, it's just you download it. It's free. It comes, plugs it in, integrates with your drone. So hope that helps. I hope that answers the question. If not, I can talk more on it later. Okay. So now that I've said that, let's get into let me tell you about some people, give some case studies and some examples. I've already talked briefly about some, but let me do some more. So if you guys are interested in hearing more of these stories, you can just go drone to 1K, just look for, it's a podcast. Anywhere there's a podcast, it should be there. And we have all these people interviewed, but I'm just going to pick out a couple of them that I've really enjoyed their stories. So there was this one guy, Andrew Hicks. He was a high school student. So when I was taking podcast applications, I reached out, or one person applied, and he said he was a high school student making 5 figures while he was in high school with his drone. And I was like blown away. I'm like, what? And so I interviewed him, and he said, yeah. He said, I linked up with a real estate photographer who didn't do drone work. He's like, we just do the interior. We don't do drone work. So we linked up with them as a real estate photography company, and they would send him some jobs, and he'd go out and he would fly those jobs. And then he started getting more jobs, and he got so much work that he was literally making $1,000 or a couple $1,000s a month. I think he said in some months it died down when he was getting busy with school. But still, I thought that was incredible as a high school student, doing real estate and some other kind of promo video jobs, that he was able to bring in 5 figures. It's like if you were to work at any normal high school job, right, a fast food restaurant or anything like that, you probably wouldn't even make that much money. He's out there making, $200 a flight. And so I was really impressed by that. He was really getting after it. And actually he came down to Florida and we had lunch together, about a year or so after the podcast was recorded. So that was fun. So there's that end of the spectrum, right? Where part-time work. And I know another person, a guy, I think his name's Preston Jensen. He's on there, but he was an accountant or office manager, and then he flies drones on the side. And again, he makes more than $1,000 a month, and he's in rural kind of North Dakota. So there's some side opportunities there. And then you can move to the other end of the spectrum. And there's people like Jeremiah Oshwald, who I was telling you about. He owns a company called Beard House Media, and he does only real estate video tours. And he's actually priced pretty low. Hold on, I have to cough. I'm sorry, I don't want to cough on the mic here. My apologies. And he's actually priced fairly low, but he does that so that he gets so much business. And so he stays busy all the time. He had to hire other pilots. He's like, literally somebody else could come into the market and I would have more than enough work. Like I can't even keep up with all the work I'm asked to do now. Now he's got all that work because he's done the right things in his business. We'll talk about some of these 3 secrets in a minute here. But he's done those very well, and he's been able to do that. And then another guy we found on our podcast, one last one, Cody Retlick. He has done more of the inspection side. So he started a company called Midwest Aerial Productions, started off with more of kind of the promo stuff that people do, kind of, oh, hey, let me take some nice pictures of your golf course and like a video of your golf course. And he got paid for some of those jobs. But then he got a contract with a cell phone company, and he is doing inspections of all of their cell towers all over the place, because they were previously sending out engineers to go out to the cell tower, to climb the cell tower and look at it, make sure it's good. And now what they do is they hire Cody. He goes out, he flies his drone, he flies around, he takes some photos, he sends them the pictures, and then their engineers just review the photos and the video from wherever they are, and they don't have to fly around. So it saves them a ton of money. Travel and safety. A lot of, you don't, anytime you can not send someone up 1,000 feet up a cell tower is like a big check mark for your workers' comp insurance, and making that cheaper and keeping it safer. So He's built a 6-figure business out of doing that. And he does like inspections for like retail shopping centers. So he goes and he takes photos of the building and the signage and all that stuff so that they can make sure all of their stores are staying to a certain standard, and the roofs. So it's just really interesting. It's just such a diverse range of things that you can do with your drone that these people have been able to build into really kind of successful businesses. All right, maybe we can take a quick pause. I'm going to erase this and we'll get into the 3 secrets here. I know where we at here, about 2:30, so I don't want to take too much longer. We'll roll through these. If anybody's got questions or anything, you can fire them at me now while I'm writing this down.
One question that came in was about licensing, right? Like, do you need a license? If so, what are the age requirements? You know, like anything you can kind of talk about that, because I think you went through that pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch more on that when I get into that kind of framework. That's step number 1 is licensing. So I'll talk about that then, if that's okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. So, all right. So we'll go through these secrets and I'll try to make try to go relatively quickly so we can get through it all. But, you know, if you guys want me to repeat any of it, I'm happy to do that. Okay. So again, we've talked to thousands of drone pilots. Like you saw, we had over 18,000 students. I've interviewed dozens and dozens of successful drone pilots. So I'm like, hey, here are the things that separate those who are really doing well and those who struggled, right? So the first one is the people who were successful, they don't rely on these client sources. And what are these, right? So I'm going to call them drone job networks, DJN, right? And I don't want to vilify these people or anything. I mean, they're not all bad, but let me tell you how they kind of fit in. So drone job networks are people who, their websites that they advertise and they go out and they try to get clients and contracts and jobs. And then they recruit pilots. They say, hey, join our network because we have jobs and we'll send you jobs. So a lot of people get their drone license, which I'll talk to more in a minute, but it's essentially that thing I mentioned at the beginning where you have to take a test at 60 questions and you get a license saying that you're now able to fly drones commercially. So people get that and they just think, oh, the jobs are just going to land in my lap. Now that I'm certified, I'm just going to get all these jobs. And that's not happen. That doesn't happen. Just because you go take a real estate exam doesn't mean people are running at you to list their house, or just because you know how to fix a sink, nobody's going to just randomly call you and ask you to come, you know, do their plumbing, right? There's other things involved in setting up and running a business. So this sounds attractive because the Drone Job Network says, hey, we got the clients, right? The clients are coming in. They're coming to us and they're giving us money, you know. We're going to hire you to do the job. So here's how this works. And let me tell you why that it's not the greatest for you as a pilot. Right. So you're the drone pilot, right? So say, hey, pilot, we have this job. Can we pay you to go fly for that job and get that data? And you say, wow, that sounds great. Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. So you go do the job, right? This is flying the job, right? So you're out there taking the pictures, getting the video, whatever that is, right? Well, the one thing they do is these people have their own in-house people that do the post-processing. And what I mean by that is those are the things that you do after you get the drone data. So that's editing the photos, putting the video together, creating the 3D map out of all the pictures that you took that we talked about, whatever else that you have to do once you collect that drone data, what you do with it before you deliver it to the client. Well, the problem is a lot of the value is in here, right? Doing that stuff, you know, and a lot of the value is here, right? Having the client relationship. And as the pilot, you're kind of getting what's left over because this drone job network has their own management, right? They have their own marketing that they have to pay for, right? They have to pay for their post-processing people. So by the time they do all that and they account for profit, you're not getting a lot over here. So typically, at least for the jobs that I've seen come through a lot of these networks and that other people that are a part of our community talk about, I mean, you're talking sometimes $40 to $80, maybe $90. And some of these are like, hey, this job is an hour away. So it's like, do you really want to drive an hour away to go fly your drone and then come back and make like $50? It's like, Now, this can be good for if you're at the very beginning, right? And you're building your portfolio and you just maybe need practice and you're like, hey, I'm going to fly my drone anyways. Might as well make a little bit of money for it. Sure, that's fine. That's a good place for this. But this is not how any of the people on our podcast built a long-term sustainable business, right? Because the problem is you don't control the client relationship, right? This drone job network says, hey, go to this address and take 10 photos and send them back to us. And that's it. Which, you know, again, if that's what you want to do, and that's the end of it. That's nice for you. But the real money comes from having recurring clients, right? Having that client come to you again and again, because it costs marketing dollars or it costs time to get clients. So once you have a client, now you have already invested that and you can continue to reap the rewards of having that relationship. So you don't have the relationship and you don't have the power to handle the footage afterwards. So let me tell you a quick story about someone who had an experience with a drone job network and why it didn't go so well. So he got hired to go take some photos. I think it was of a gas station or a similar type business. So he's out there, he's flying his drone. He's a licensed pilot. He's like, has a right to be there. He takes some pictures and all of a sudden someone comes flying out of the gas station. It's like, hey, get off my, you can't be here. Starts screaming at him, getting in his face. He's like, whoa. And he's like trying to fly a drone, not crash and take the pictures he was supposed to take. And he's like, hey, listen, I was hired to come do this. And I guess they didn't know about it. Well, then this guy's wife or girlfriend or someone came running out too, ran over to him, was screaming at him, actually started hitting him, like punching him while he was trying to fly the drone. And he's like, geez, he's a pretty big dude. So he wasn't getting like hurt or anything, but he's like, dude, he said, I just had to land as fast as possible, get my drone and leave. Right. And that happened because as a pilot, you don't have any communication with the client. Right. And so there's no like coordinating. There's no, oh, hey, I'm going to be here at this time. It's just, there's so many issues and things that could go wrong with it that secret number one, don't rely on those client sources. Okay. So that's the first thing that they do. All these people, they get their own client relationships and they know how to build that network and they know how to build those and do that themselves. Right. So secret number two, we're moving on. And again, if you have questions about those, you can send it in and I can happy to answer questions on any of that stuff. All right. Secret number two, they're not pushy or salesy, right? Not salesy. I don't know if I spelled that right, but whatever. Or pushy, right? They are what we call attractors. And what I mean by this is you would think, oh, well, these people are probably really good salesmen and they know how to get out there and sell and they know how to convince people to buy their stuff. Well, there's one guy was on our podcast, Dominic Wilkerson. He's like, I'd never sell anything. I don't like selling. I don't like being pushed. I don't like being upfront. He's like, I just continue to put my work out there. I know how to put it in the right places. He actually specialized a lot in Instagram. He's like, I knew how to use the right hashtags to know how to find people who might be good clients for me. I started following with them and then just interacting with them on their Instagram stories, building a relationship with them. And all of a sudden it came up and they said, oh, I need someone to do real estate stuff for my listings. I know Dominic does that. We're buddies now on Instagram. Let me ask him. And he said, he's got a 6-figure business. And he said over 70% of his business has come from Instagram, just building relationships. Right. So that's cool. But he did that because he knew how to be an attractor, right? He knew how to get people to find him rather than him having to go push his sales and his services on other people. Another example is Alex Harris, a guy who is a drone pilot. He actually is an instructor for 2 of our courses. He's really good at getting awesome cinematic footage, and he knows how to go put it up on his website and on different places on the internet to where it can easily be searched and found. And he's gotten found a bunch that way. And different movie companies have licensed his footage, different clips from his drone reel. He's sold that to them for a couple $100, even though he'd already taken it. Sometimes he gets offered thousands of dollars, depending on if it's exclusive rights or not. But these people all know how to, what we call it, I like to call it be findable, right? So that's the key, is knowing how to be findable, because when there's going to be people out there looking for the services you're offering, but if you're not findable, and if you're not allowing yourself to get max exposure on the internet, then they'll never find you. And it's more than just, oh, let me throw some pictures on Instagram, right? There's some strategies behind it, and there's knowing which places are effective to put things and how to put it there and all that stuff, right? So this is stuff like, Google My Business. You need one of those. Again, Instagram, YouTube, a lot of these different social media platforms lend themselves well to different strategies to where you can get your footage or your work in front of the right people. Okay. All right. So that's secret number 2, right? You don't have to be salesy and pushy. You have to learn how to be an attractor and how to be findable. And that comes by becoming the drone guy or the drone girl in your area. Actually, I got a $1,300 job shooting some commercial real estate, some warehouses and some other things. Literally, I didn't go look for this job at all. It was simply because they knew me as the drone guy in this area. And I can give you a quick tip on one thing that helps with that, which is what I was doing, is different local blogs, Instagram accounts, people like that kind of give you the pulse on your area. They need content, they need photos, they need some videos of things that are happening, new developments that are going up, things like that. So you can reach out to them. And I did this. I reached out to some of them on Instagram and said, hey, I'm a drone pilot. I usually keep my drone in my car. If you ever need photographs of anything around town, let me know. I'm happy to grab them and send them to you for free. Basically just appreciate a link back or a mention to my website or my social profile. Because I started this because I saw one guy was getting on top of a parking garage, trying to take pictures with his phone of a new construction site, and it was like terrible. And so I said, hey, I can get my drone and take some much better photos. He said, oh, that's great. So I've done that. And then they publish that and they say, you know, drone photos or drone video courtesy of David Young, and it gets more people to know you as the drone person, right? So then when someone needs drone video, like this one guy did, they said, oh, hey, Dave, oh yeah, David does that. And you're known for that. And then boom, you get that job. And it was, you know, $1,300 just to go take pictures of a couple different warehouses and do a quick video. So it was a pretty easy job, pretty fun. And I got to knock that out. All right. Last secret. Yeah, and the people who aren't getting any business is because they don't really put any effort into becoming findable. That's a big one. All right, and this is another one. Be an educator. So a lot of people, they don't even know, sorry, that was a really messy way to say educator, but hopefully you can read that. A lot of people don't even really know how drones can help them. So you have to educate sometimes, right? So if you encounter someone and you know that they would be good for your services, instead of trying to sell them, just educate them and say, oh, hey, did you know that like drones can do this, right? And you're teaching them, oh, hey, drones can do this really cool thing. Here, let me show you. And you can go out and do a demo for them. Hey, yeah, I got my drone. You mind if I pop it out and like fly it and let me show you how I do this? And people love drones because they're cool. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, let's see it. You know, and so many people have been able to get business this way by when they do have that interaction with someone or they do encounter someone who they know might need their services, they're not shy about just educating them. Again, it's not, hey, you should really hire me to do all your stuff. And you should, you know, not aggressive, not that, just, oh, hey, can I show you what it does? It's pretty cool, you know, and they do that. So, oh, hey, look, let me map this construction site. It only takes 5 minutes. Pop it up. Look, here's this cool map. You can create it on your phone. It's really interesting. So this is something that Jeremiah does well. Jeremiah Oshwald, he educates people on some stats when he's meeting with realtors. Like, hey, you know, there's some studies by the National Association of Realtors that say, you know, only 7% of agents use listing videos, and they interviewed people, and over 70% of home sellers want an agent that uses video. Hence, a very large opportunity for you to offer that and get more listings and get more customers, right? And so that's the problem that you're really solving for them is, hey, I'm going to help you with your marketing so that more people will come list with you and you'll get more money. So you're seen as more of an investment that way as opposed to just an expense, right? So they're very good educators. And I have some other stories that I could share about, you know, somebody who helped a construction company settle a dispute with someone who was delivering roofing materials because he had a video of exactly how much material they delivered. And there was some dispute. And so they said, hey, this saved us a ton of money because we could prove that they only delivered this amount when they said they delivered some greater amount. So he was able to do that by educating them on how he could help. All right. Real quick, I know we're kind of coming to time here. Let me throw the framework up here real quick. So these 3 secrets fit into like an overall framework, and this is what I'll talk about. I'll talk about the licensing too. So here's kind of the step-by-step process, right? So it starts with, I'll call it P107. So this is getting your Part 107 license. It's really called the remote pilot certificate. So this is your drone license essentially. This is what I mentioned. This is your 60-question test that is administered by the FAA. You have to get this if you want to fly drones commercially. It's not incredibly hard. You do have to study because they cover a lot of like airspace stuff. But we've had people study in one weekend and pass the test with over a 90%, right? So it's definitely doable. It's nothing outrageous, all right? So I would say step 2 is becoming proficient with your drone. So this is just learning how to fly a drone. You know, again, like I mentioned, they're so easy to fly now. They all have, you know, all the popular ones have GPS in them, but you need to practice, right? Practice with getting pictures and how to get good video. And if you want, you know, you can sign up for a course on doing this. Also, there's just tons of YouTube videos on there on like drone tips and how to do get good drone pictures. And so this just takes a little bit of practice. But for all these jobs that I'm talking about, you don't have to be the world's, if you're going to go film for like a Netflix movie, you need to be like really good and have really good equipment. But for the stuff I'm talking about, real estate, construction, some of these corporate promo stuff, you don't have to be like super, super good. Just learn how to fly a drone smoothly, learn how to take some decent pictures, and you're there. All these different experts we interview, they say, listen, I'm not the best, I just know how to build a business. All right. And then next we would come to, I'm just going to start drawing around a little bit so we can fit it all in here. This would be the be findable. So work on being findable. So this is set up all your social profiles. Make sure that when someone, make sure you have a website with your face on it. This is the worst thing. People put up a website and their face is nowhere to be found. Nobody wants to do business with a faceless company. They want to see who they're working with. So put a website up with your face on it. Know how to do some SEO, do things like Google My Business. Make it so when someone's looking for what you offer, you come up, right? And so there's some strategies involved here. Figure out how to do some SEO, but work on being findable. This takes some time, right? You're going to build your portfolio. You can do some of those things I mentioned with doing jobs for local blogs or, community organizations, but get a portfolio together. Keep working on building that. And the more findable you can become, the more business you're going to get. All right. And then I call it be business ready. And what is that? This is the boring stuff. This is all the back office stuff, the necessary things you have to do that aren't as sexy, that aren't like revenue generating. So this is like having bookkeeping set up, knowing how to invoice your clients, having a legal entity like an LLC or something, figuring out your drone insurance, all that stuff. Because by the time you land a client, they're gonna go, cool, can you send me an invoice? And you can't be like, what's an invoice? So you have to have that set up, and they're gonna say, oh, can you send me a copy of your insurance, your liability insurance? And you're gonna go, what's that? So you need to have this stuff in order at the point when you have your first client, right? So here, next, we would say do that next. And then we will call it networking and free work. And people get all salty about free work, but I'm saying if you don't have any clients, the best way to get a client is to do some free work. And this can be that demo work I talked about, right? So get to know people, reach out to other people see if there's things you can do for people for free. Again, real estate's an easy way to get in. Do some free videos, some free photos. That way you have some more stuff to add to your portfolio and you can build relationships. And then once you do that, that naturally kind of leads into your first paying gig, right? Paying client. Because when I've done this, the common next question after you do the free job is, hey, how much are you going to charge? How much would you charge for me to do this again, right? They always ask that. And everybody that comes on the podcast says, I started with doing free jobs. So again, don't do it forever. Once you're landing paying clients, I don't want you to be still giving away free work, but don't feel like you're above that. If you have no paying clients, free is a good price for you until someone starts paying you, and then you can do away with free, okay? And then once you do that, then it's scale, right? So this is things like referrals, Google Ads, and other things like let me move it over. Here we go. And repeat business. So this is kind of the framework that we've seen dozens of companies do. All right, and this works. This process: get your license, become at least mildly proficient, start working on being findable, get your business in order, keep getting out there and doing free work, kind of build your reputation, do some networking, and you can actually mix, and you don't have to go in this exact order, right? So when we're here, you can actually, if you wanted to, you could start running some Google ads and get some clients that way. And that'll kind of speed some of this process up, although that does cost money. But then when you get your first paying client, then as long as you're doing a good job and you're doing the things like asking for reviews and kind of doing what you should be doing as a business owner, this kind of cycle kind of feeds on itself and it becomes an exponential curve, right? It's always the hardest at the beginning because you're pushing and pushing and no one really knows you. But once you get some jobs and people start knowing you more, it goes up much quicker. We had a student in one of our courses says, like, once I started doing this stuff and it really started getting some momentum, it just like exploded. And so this process works. And this is what led us to kind of create the course that we have. I don't know if you want me to mention that now or later.
Yeah, so with about 10-ish minutes, I mean, David, I can go a minute or two over because I'm seeing a bunch of questions come in.
Sure.
Folks, what we'll do is we'll switch to Q&A in just a few minutes because I already see some questions in. David, why don't you use this moment, share a bit about the course, some of these questions that I see folks asking in the chat about licensing, about best practices and being able to apply this for themselves. Share a bit about what they could learn in the course, and then we'll switch to Q&A in about two to 3 minutes.
Perfect. I'll go real quick. Okay. So we decided, since people were having a hard time with this, they're like, I can fly my drone. I just don't know how to run a business and get business. So we created a course called Drone to 1K, and actually we partnered with a lot of experts. So I teach some of it. I've started several businesses. Drone Launch Academy is a 7-figure business. So I know a lot about digital marketing and all that stuff. But we went out and we partnered with 3 different 6-figure drone business owners. Some of the ones I've talked about: Jeremiah Oshwald, Cody Retlick, then another one, Dominic Wilkerson, right? They are all instructors in this course. And then I went out and I got my tax accountant and my CPA, who does all my personal stuff, to teach all about how to set up a business entity and bookkeeping and all that stuff. I got my personal search engine optimization guy to teach about being findable. I got the guy that runs all of my Google ads. So I've paid him almost $1 million, or he's almost managed almost $1 million of my advertising. He's teaching you guys how to do Google ads. And he actually designed a complete Google ads campaign. I spent several $1,000s of my own money testing it to make sure it works, that it brings in profitable leads. And we have a way to download it, give it to you. You just put it in your account, modify it for your location or business name, and then hit go. And then you have a profitable ad campaign running, right? So we packaged all of this. We created all this into a course. There was like 8 instructors. We had a beta group go through it, about 100 people, like a test group. And I was like, I want to make sure this works before we release it big and live to everyone. So we had 100 people go through it. And they had really good results. Everybody had a lot of good stuff to say about it. I think if you click some button around here, you can go to the sales page.
Right above our heads. Yeah, there should be above us in this video chat a link to David's course. So, and we'll go out after this as well.
Yeah, so there's some videos in there about people who have gone through the course, that beta group, and what their experience was. So, it teaches you literally everything. I think at this moment, there's over 170 videos in there. Right now, it's about 18 hours worth of content. So it's extremely comprehensive. We tell you literally also step-by-step how to pick your drone niche, how to build your website, literally every click, how to build a portfolio, how to do the bookkeeping, invoicing, drone insurance, networking and finding clients. We give you sample presentations that you can give to real estate agents and what to say to them. We do mock phone calls and mock reach outs, and give you a bunch of different ways you can get new clients, Instagram tactics. Like I mentioned, the Google ads campaign. I mean, it is beyond comprehensive. We've worked on it literally all year long, all of 2020 doing this. I flew 8,000 miles all around the country filming with all these different instructors to put this course together. And so that's what this is. We're just trying to make the most comprehensive one-stop shop program, from going from nothing to making at least $1,000, if not more, with your drone. So we've had several people surpass $1,000 a month, and they're still blown. Like one guy, he did $12,000 in 1 month. I don't want to say that's typical. There was a hurricane that came through, and he did a lot of inspection work for that. But still, that was his second month. He went from 0, and then 2 months later had a $12,000 month. So I'm not saying you're gonna do that. He worked really hard, but I just want to let you know it's possible to do if you're implementing everything and you're doing all these strategies. So we're really excited about it. I think it works really well. I could talk a lot more about it, but I'll just kind of leave it at that for now.
Exactly. And for everyone, if you have further questions, like I said, the link is above for the chat, but let's hop into some of the questions. The one I've seen kind of recurring here is touching on learning about rules and regulations about drone flying in a specific area. Where should one look? And also how to, where do you start for the licensing process? So can you touch upon, you want to learn about perhaps flying drones in New York City, where would you look? And then secondly, if you want to take the P107, where should one go?
Sure. One thing I was going to mention, actually, I was going to throw in with this course real quick. We have a Part 107, a prep course that 13,000 people have taken. It's got a 99.6% pass rate. So that's what we've done a lot of. We're actually going to throw that in for free with this course if you guys signed up for it. So if that's something that you didn't have, we're going to throw that in there. We're also going to throw in, we have another course called Drones 101, which teaches you the basics of your drone, how to fly it and all that stuff. So we're going to throw those in there too. But you'd have to look to see what airspace you're in. So there's a really good app called, there's several different ways you could look at it, but one good one is AirMap. It's an app. It shows you the airspace. So there's certain types of airspace, controlled airspace, where you cannot fly your drone unless you have prior permission. And there's a certain process that you can go through to get that permission, and it should walk you through that on the app. Sometimes it's through this system called the Lance system, and sometimes you have to go to the FAA's website. But for recreational flyers, typically, if you can check that, you just have to make sure you're not in controlled airspace. So New York City might be a little tough. You might have to go find certain pockets of areas where the airspace is not a controlled airspace. So probably downtown, there's probably not gonna be many places that you're allowed to fly in there. So you might have to go out a little bit from there. Now you can fly them in your house if you want, they can't control that. But yeah, downtown. But otherwise, if you look on that app, it should tell you where you can and can't fly. And then for getting started with the certification process, like I mentioned, we'll give the course for free for people, but even if you go to our website, we have like a free, excuse me, free practice test that people can take. So you can kind of get a feel for what the questions are like. But there are 60 multiple choice questions, and you have, I think, 2 hours to finish the exam. And so it's everything from drone regulations to airspace to aviation weather to I mean, that's the main topics, to other like smaller things like maintenance, inspection, and stuff. It's not the world's hardest test, but you should probably study at least a couple days, go through a prep course on it.
Thank you. I mean, like you said, the link itself, there's a bunch of free resources to or a bunch of resources to help with this for folks asking follow-up questions. I see Scott asked a question that applies to not just drones, but anything. What's the most efficient way to deliver data and video to a client? You know, because I imagine some of these video files are pretty large. Some of these data packages are bigger than email.
Yeah, most of the time we use Dropbox. So we'll upload it to Dropbox and give them a Dropbox link. We've used Google Drive. That works well. I've done that with some clients. And those are usually, well, not free, but you know, a lot of people have access to them anyways. Vimeo, also, if you're just doing a video, there's usually on Vimeo, you can send someone a video and they can download it from there. But typically what I do and what all the instructors in the course do, they're delivering that typically via Dropbox.
Do you have a Dropbox professional account, if you don't mind sharing? Or does like the free one cover it, just out of curiosity?
I don't know what their plans are like now. I think I have a pro one just because I have a ton of stuff on there, not even like drone client related. But I don't know how much storage they give you. I think there's some free version where they give you a certain level of storage, but I could be wrong on that.
Got it.
I do know that. I do know that if you use like Google Drive, like with your Gmail account, you get a certain amount of storage with Google Drive, and that would work just as well.
Great. Question that I even had taking notes here. You know, what drone insurance do you recommend? Do you have any retailers you recommend? Just because that's kind of a nascent market.
Yeah, Skywatch. And actually Skywatch, I mean, I'm recommending them because I use them personally. I'm not getting paid to say this. They actually teach the drone insurance section in our course too. But Skywatch, tch.ai, really great app. You can do drone insurance on demand. So they do liability insurance and like insuring the drone itself. So let's say you have a drone mission that you need to fly for an hour. You can just pay $10 and you get $1 million in liability coverage for that job. And so it's a nice way, especially if you're just doing like a job here and there, where you can have $1 million liability policy and you're covered. But they'll also cover your drone too. I think it's like a 12% deductible. If you crash your drone, they'll replace it for you. But check out Skywatch.
Thank you. And you know, I think you covered parts of this, but if you don't mind rehashing just kind of the bullets, especially when you're starting out, like the key pieces to help build a portfolio, you know, what home footage should you include? I know you touched upon it in kind of the system, but do you mind just kind of repeating, you know, in the early days, how do you create that portfolio? I know you said you did the free social links for folks in town, but.
Yeah, so I kind of, in our course, we break it down into kind of 3 categories. We have a whole section on building your portfolio, but I kind of break it down into like self-shoot, free shoot, and paid shoot. So self-shoot is like you're going out and you're taking video stuff on your own, right? So something that people really undervalue or that you don't realize is valuable is community footage. So you can go on, we tell people go on like TripAdvisor, go on different places to see, if you're unfamiliar with the area, to see like what's popular in that area. But if you live there, you probably know, oh, people that come here like to see this or they like to see that. Go and film those things, right? In Tampa, there's a humongous bridge, Sunshine Skyway Bridge. It's got like a ton of searches. If I went out and I did a nice video of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, that was pretty cool, and I put it up on YouTube, I guarantee it would start getting hits. So go find that things that people like and that they search for anyways, and go get footage of that, or different neighborhoods. This is especially good for real estate. Let's say there's a really popular or maybe nicer neighborhood. Go get the lakes or the fountain or the clubhouse or different things and features about that neighborhood, or maybe just fly it down the street when there are no cars there. Kind of collect that. Like for me, there's a really nice college near my house and a lake. So I went and I just flew video of that college and the lake, and then somebody ended up using that footage. It was a friend of mine. He needed it for something. So I let him use it and gave me $100 gift card for a nice restaurant, so like little stuff like that, which is cool. But yeah, I would do community footage first because you don't have to have anybody's permission. People want to see it anyways, and they're kind of searching for it. And you can utilize it. Let's say you get hired to do a video down the road and you're doing a house in that neighborhood. Now you've got this community footage you can just kind of bake in. So that, and then when you're doing the free work, a lot of times you can reach out to realtors or construction companies to do that free demo. And you can also add that to your portfolio. You can tell them, hey, listen, I'm newer at this. I'd love to do a free job for you in exchange for allowing me to use it in my portfolio. So, right. There's that. And then eventually when you get paying clients, obviously all the jobs you're doing for people that are paying you, you can just add to your website and your YouTube videos and things like that too. So I kind of put them in that 3 categories.
Awesome. I appreciate you going through that. We are at time. I'm going to ask one last question, and I'm sorry if we didn't get to all of them today. Again, David's courses is a wonderful source of resources moving forward, and this replay will be available for anybody who joined late or wants to watch this after. The last question is, if you do get a P107, that is a U.S. specific license, right? So internationally, yes, that would require different licensing.
Depending on the country, yes. Like Canadian drone laws, like have their own drone laws. Typically, countries each have their own drone laws. Yes. So cool. The P107 is USA specific, but you could probably, you can just honestly Google drone laws Canada, and you can pull up I think it's the Department of Transportation over there, and it kind of outlines the requirements for them or whichever country you're in.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we are at time. For everyone who joined us today, let's give David a thank you in the chat because I've learned how to start. I mean, this was so much information in 1 hour. David, thank you again. Me and you'll stay on for a second after this. For everyone who joined the chat, again, we're going to be sending out the link to David's courses above. That'll also be in the email. But David, just thank you. This was an incredible information-packed workshop.
Yeah, thanks. And I appreciate it, guys. Remember, check out the replay. I know we covered a ton of stuff, but, feel free to do that. And, I'm happy to be of help however else I can.
Very, very cool. I'm going to kill the recording now.